Hi, my name is Dave Osmond. One thing investors are always looking to do is to determine whether a stock has the appropriate value in the market. There's lots of ways to determine that. One important way is to do it through fundamental analysis. Fundamental analysis takes into account the overall economic conditions of the market and the industry, and then also takes into account some very specific features within a company's balance statement and financial statements. Overall, we want to look at the economic market by way of news and research to determine whether or not the values are appropriate. We also want to take common and key metrics for very specific ratios and points of data from a company's balance statement. That's what we're going to look at today in this video. So let's start with a definition of fundamental analysis. Fundamental analysis is the study of economic, industry, and company conditions in an effort to determine the value of a company's stock. Fundamental analysis typically focuses on key statistics in a company's financial statements to determine if the stock price is correctly valued. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at different levels of where we can approach fundamental analysis. We'll start with overall economic news research and sector news. We'll compare performance and compare indices. Then we're going to go into more specifically the actual stock price and analyze it using some key fundamental metrics, starting with an earnings per share, the PE ratio. We'll also look at the price to book ratio. Now, please note there are hundreds and hundreds of different metrics for analyzing a stock on its fundamentals. We're only going to cover a few, in fact, these three. I'm going to be using a platform called MetaStock Zenith to do this research. MetaStock Zenith has an enormous amount of data, news, and research all at your fingertips. So we'll go through how we can go about looking for these fundamental points. Right now we're looking at the home screen for the platform, and it starts with some macroeconomic news stories. You can see that the headlining stories and certain indexes or different categories are listed. What's great about this is I can go in and literally click on these and decide what types of information I'd like to see every day. If I'm highly invested in financial services, I can simply save that and I'll be able to pull up news stories that are involved for that industry, for investment banking, for example. If we look down here, for example, I've got another one set for consumer goods. You can click on that, and if we're looking at the index or that sector, we're going to get news all about consumer goods. And you can see here that it will bring up a story that just came out telling us a lot about a big buyout, of course, by Warren Buffett and Heinz. We can also use this home screen to analyze the major indices within the general markets. Off to the right side here, for example, we can click on the Dow. This is going to give us a very quick snapshot of the current status of the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index. It's going to tell us quick charts and give us index news specific to what's going on right now. That's critical in understanding the general market as we do our fundamental analysis and we start going down to the price level and looking at individual stocks and how they relate to what's going on in the overall market. For example, how are interest rates? What are we looking at as far as overall trends in the market? We can find that on this page very, very quickly. The news stories as well, top performer news about those who are in part of this index who are having success that day and those who are moving in the other directions on that day. So let's now go down to a sector or even a individual stock price level. Let's select Pfizer. Now from this screen, I'm going to be able to take a look at Pfizer and all of its metrics in one simple place. In fact, I can actually scroll down and find individual news and research related to the Pfizer stock or its peers. And what we can do is actually click on competitors, and we can look in the sector competitors and index competitors who are also involved with the same type of industry. So we can get a broad look of what's going on in each of those. So you can see from the competitors page that we're looking at the group of companies within an sector or industry. The reason we do this, it's very important when we're looking at PE ratios and earnings per share, that we're comparing them side by side with other companies from the industry or the sector. That reason is because you can look at certain industries would have a normal rate of change for an EPS or PE ratio that would be very different from others. And so you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, so to speak. Let's look at the earnings per share. Now, the earnings per share is the portion of a stock's profit that's allocated to each outstanding share. How we calculate that is net income of the company minus the dividends paid out divided by their average outstanding shares. And when we're calculating that, it's really more accurate to use a weighted average number of shares outstanding over the reporting term. Okay, so the EPS, for example, for Pfizer is 2.28. For the fiscal year 1 and fiscal year 2, a little higher, 2.36. We can use this to go down the list and compare other EPS or earnings per share for the top 25 in the pharmaceuticals. We can do this for any industry. We can compare the top 25, and we can even compare the entire broad market of pharmaceuticals, several hundred different stocks together, to see how they stack up against one another. Now, our earnings per share is highly useful in calculating, in fact, critical to calculating the PE ratio. And the PE ratio is what's going to give us a price to earnings establishment. It's calculated by dividing the security's current stock price by the previous 4 quarters earnings per share. So the PE ratio shows how much an investor must pay to buy $1 of the company's earnings. For example, if a stock's current price is $20 and the EPS for the last 4 quarters was $2, the PE ratio is 10. That is, that it's $20 divided by $2 equals 10. This means that you must pay $10 to buy $1 of the company's earnings. Now, investor expectations of a company's future performance plays a heavy role in determining what a current PE ratio is. But a common approach is to compare the PE ratio of companies within the same industry. Make sure we're looking at the right industry or sectors when we're making comparisons here. So you can see how very easy it is to go in and do some market research based solely on the competitors and staying within that industry. Let's go back to the overview page for Pfizer. And we can actually chart some of these ratios here. What's great is on this page for Pfizer and for every equity, we have not just news that we can use to find out what's going on with the company's balance sheet, but we also have all of these ratios broken out for you. Your PE ratio, several other ratios that we won't get into today, but it's in, of course, a quick comparison of peers for PE ratio and growth of EPS. You can also check revenue and EPS through a chart. I'll go ahead and open that chart now. This will actually show us the relative performance of the EPS versus its estimate. This also has a comparison to a benchmark, the S&P 500 in purple. But as you can see, it's very easy to see that we can track the earnings per share in relation to their estimates and a benchmark very, very easily in charting format. So this is a fantastic platform for getting virtually any fundamental type of data that you need at a very quick glance. Another popular metric for determining some fundamental analysis for a stock price is the price to book ratio. Well, let's look at that one a little bit, and we're going to do a search and look for the price to book value across a wide range of securities. Now, a lower price to book ratio could mean that the stock is undervalued. However, it could also mean that something is fundamentally wrong with the company. So as with most ratios, we have to be aware that it varies by industry and that it's not the only metric. You'll need to use many different metrics and many different ratios to come to a good decision for your financial analysis, okay, for fundamentals. Well, let's take a look at that. Let's do a search in our platform of Zenith and take a look at that. We go up to this box here and click Advanced Search, Equities, Companies. And what we'll do is we'll select some criteria here. I'm going to do a search for everything in the United States. This could very much be any other country as well. Know that this is a very globally focused platform. If you trade markets from really anywhere in the world, you could select that country or that region or geography and do the same type of search. Right now we'll look for ordinary shares, but you could look for preference shares or derivatives and warrants. We'll go ahead and look at ordinary shares. Let's do a sector analysis for, let's go ahead and select the technology sector. But as you could see, we could select from really any different sector or group. And we'll select any exchange in the United States. And we'll select only the primary quotes so that we don't get all the secondary quotes in our results. So we go to Add Criteria. And from this drop-down menu, we can select from many different fundamental metrics, some of which we've been discussing, many of which we haven't here, but some you may be familiar with already. We can search for an earnings per share. We can search for that PE ratio. And we can also search for the price to book. And price to book is a different, I'm scrolling through so that you can see the difference between these types. And these are right here, the price to book is also listed with some 52-week highs in the PE ratios and also alpha and beta, these types of metrics. Let's do those three. Now we'll set up the parameter of an earnings per share greater than $2. We'll do a price to earnings ratio or a PE ratio of anything greater than 9. And we'll do a price to book ratio of 3. And we go ahead and search. According to this list, we have 25 instruments now in a list that are meeting that criteria. And what we do is we go to the end of the list and see that we have our EPS, our PE ratio, and our price to book ratio listed for those criteria. So depending on what you're looking for in a certain industry sector or even the broad market, you could put in many different types of metrics and find and search lists of instruments that could be undervalued according to your fundamental analysis. What's great about the Zenith platform is that it makes it very simple to find those, to be able to go into a specific instrument that perhaps you're already invested in or thinking about investing in and be able to find literally any fundamental detail that you would need for that instrument. Or you can do what we're doing now and search across a broad group of different equities and find the fundamental criteria that might clue you in or draw you in to some shares that could be undervalued. Once we have our list, it's very easy to go ahead and take that list and import it to the MetaStock charting program. And you can use that list that you've just generated doing fundamental analysis scans and then run other types of analysis from a technical standpoint on that list. It's a fantastic way to narrow down and find positions that will give you great confidence in the types of things that you're investing in. So I certainly hope through this short demonstration that you've seen the value of fundamental analysis for your investing. The MetaStock Zenith program can help you by collecting a lot of different data points, a lot of news and research, and give you the ability to scan through that data to find opportunities and locate undervalued stocks. Thanks for your time and best of luck in your investing.